Hi, everybody. My name is Schell. I run a studio called Schell Games out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have about 100 people out there making VR and AR apps. Excellent. Thanks so much. And here's some of them. You may have seen some of our different VR and AR apps. We've got stuff on just about every platform at this point. If you want to see some demos, we're out on the expo floor. But I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to bring you messages from the future, from the distant year of 2025, to tell you how things went down with virtual reality and augmented reality. I'm a big believer that the best way to get good at predicting things is to make concrete predictions, so I'm going to share some of my concrete predictions with you today. So first concrete prediction is VR gaming revenue in the year 2025 will be between $7.5 billion and $22.5 billion. And I'm very focused on games right now, so it's something I think about a lot. The way I got to this prediction is you look at forecasts about gaming in general, and we see that, it's probably trending towards about $150 billion by the time we get to 2025. And then I believe that virtual reality will constitute between 5 and 15% of the gaming market at that point. So that, if you believe those two things, that gives you these ranges. Now, a lot of people are kind of down on VR gaming. They're saying, it hasn't taken off as fast as we thought. But that's just how it is with new technologies. You look at any new technology, they always start out with like really flat curves, and then gradually they have this exponential rise that happens. And so we're seeing kind of a flat thing with a little bit of kind of slow growth right now. But I think we're about to see the knee in the curve in virtual reality. I think we're going to see it for two reasons. Number one is price drops. VR is not only priced too high for most people, it's priced too high for its core market. Right now, the VR systems that are out there in the consumer space, they are affordable by people over 25 who have some interest in this, but they can't really afford it. The key market is people under 25 for virtual reality entertainment experiences. They have the time, they have the desire for privacy, they like intense experiences, they're exploring, but they can't afford this. So when the price drops come, we're going to see a big burst of adoption. The second thing that's going to happen is social. Social experiences are what always makes the curve rise and blow up big, and we don't really have social VR yet, and social VR is incredibly powerful. I will argue it's the most powerful of all digital social experiences. Second prediction, most VR interaction in the year 2025 will be through handheld controllers. I feel bad coming on right after this awesome demonstration of air grab, but I believe that air grab and things like that are going to be in the minority in the future. They'll have their place, but mostly tactile is very, very important. Look at me right now. I'm holding this little clicky thing, and I don't have to look at it to know whether it worked. I can feel it with my hand. So I believe that handheld controllers in the year 2025 will be the norm. So my third prediction is that parasite VR systems, which dominate us now, will be in the minority. So what am I talking about, parasite VR systems? Right now, just about every virtual reality system we have is a parasite. Okay? We have VR parasiting on a phone, parasiting on a PC, parasiting on a game console. None of those devices were designed for virtual reality, not one of them. What's going to happen is we're going to have devices designed for the purpose. They're going to be designed for virtual reality, and that's going to change things. We had this pretty cool announcement here from Google about WorldSense. Let's take a look at their WorldSense video for a second here. The whole idea being you're going to move naturally in VR. They have no cables, no phone, no PC, because everything is built in, everything is self-contained. That is where things are going to be going in the year 2025. Most VR systems will work this way. Very few of them will work off phones, will work off PCs, will work off of game consoles. They will be self-contained. Now, the weird thing is once you start talking about something like this with inside-out tracking for virtual reality, and now I can walk anywhere, this raises a lot of questions. It certainly raises safety questions, and it makes you wonder about where is this line between virtual reality and augmented reality really going to be. In the year 2025, AR revenue will be about 15% of VR revenue. And let me tell you why I think that is. VR technology is cheaper. It's certainly got the entertainment advantage. And then on top of that, we have this weird mixed reality thing that's starting to happen. VR is growing cameras. VR has to grow cameras because it needs them for inside-out tracking. It also needs them just for plain safety. If I'm just going to walk everywhere with a VR headset on, I need the cameras. Once you have high-quality, low-latency cameras integrated into a VR headset, you have an experience that is very competitive with the purposes that you use augmented reality see-through experiences for. And so I believe that both of these are going to have their place, but that VR systems with cameras are going to dominate because they are cheaper and they are going to work better. So the projection that I was talking about there, where people are talking about $100 billion markets for augmented reality, are based on a simple assumption. The assumption is that smart glasses replace smartphones. And that, I do not believe, is coming in the short term. I do not believe that is going to be here by 2025 because there are several obstacles that stand in the way. And these are the obstacles we need to address. So let's look at the obstacles. First mass market AR obstacle. The glasses look stupid. Okay? A lot of the AR glasses just, in terms of mass market, they have problems when you socially interact. Many glasses are too dark. Many glasses are just too ridiculous looking for people to wear on a daily basis. So that we must overcome that problem. A lot of people say, oh, you know, I have to have the eye contact. Are these people really having eye contact? Right? Here's some folks designing a car made of Jell-O or something, and are they really having eye contact? I'm not so sure about that. And I get it for an industrial application. I totally believe that, yes, you might put this on to design your Jell-O car, but in order to live your daily life, my God, we have to overcome that. Everyone should look at and remember these, right? The Google Glass. People say, oh, we're going to get the augmented reality glasses. They're going to be light, they're going to be slick, they're going to be pretty much just like a pair of glasses. Are they going to be less intrusive than this? Because this was one of the biggest technical failures that we've seen in the last 10 years. This was a giant, giant failure, right? It wasn't like Apple Watch was a little disappointing for some people. This was like nobody adopted this, and they had to cut it out. And that's worth thinking about, because this was a great product, well-designed, easy to use. There were so many good things about it, but the fact that it's socially awkward was the real killer for it. And if something as light and slim and thin as this is so socially awkward that people won't use it, how in the world are you going to get people to adopt something like this? One thing I think about a lot is voice recognition technology. Back in the 80s, everyone used to say, we're going to get this voice recognition. It's right around the corner. And here it is, 30 years later, right around the corner. And now we have it and it's working. But everyone will use it for composition. No more keyboards. Everyone will just talk, 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 talk. But we don't. We use it a little bit. You know, hey Siri, play me a song. You know, we do that. But in terms of like, let me do most of my email composition through voice recognition, we don't, because it's socially awkward. And speaking of socially awkward, we need to talk about something very important. We need to talk about that black dot, all right? That black dot is a giant problem. I'll let Bugs Bunny have some commentary on this.
Did you ever have the feeling you was being watched?
It's not a good feeling to feel like you're being watched. Nobody likes to feel like they're being watched. I like to read old books. One old book that I happened to come across was The Master Key by L. Frank Baum, written in 1901. He's the guy who wrote The Wizard of Oz. And he wrote this electrical fairy tale. It was a pretty interesting book, founded upon the mysteries of electricity and the optimism of its devotees. It was written for boys, but others may read it. That's very gracious. In it, he notes, who knows? These things in this book are quite improbable, to be sure, but are they impossible? The impossibilities of yesterday become the accepted facts of today. And in the book, a boy is connecting a lot of wires together with a battery. He's like a home tinkerer who loves playing with electricity, and he hooks the wrong wire to the wrong switch, and suddenly a demon appears. And the demon brings him electrical gadgets from the future. And this, I believe, is the first time anyone's mentioned augmented reality in fiction. The demon brings him a pair of glasses from the future. And this pair of glasses lets you look at people And when you see people, it has this coding system where it has these different letters that tell you about their personality. The glasses are referred to as the character marker. And the boy uses them on his series of adventures in order to save his life. He runs into an evil French scientist. And E and C means he is both evil and cruel, and so he knows about this guy before he gets in trouble. And so I find it interesting and telling that the very first mention of augmented reality in human history is all about something that surveils other people and judges them silently, and no one likes to be unevenly judged. So the third obstacle is limited field of view. Limited field of view is not a little problem. Limited field of view is a big, big, big problem. Let me show you. I teach at Carnegie Mellon, and here's an experience some of my students made. The idea here is you're visiting a sick child in a hospital room. It's kind of an artistic experience using the HoloLens.
Now, Alice, we need to take some blood. You'll feel a little pinch, but I promise it will be done in 10 seconds.
Mommy, I'm scared. I hate needles. Come over and hold my hand, please.
And so she invites you to come over and hold her hand and give her a hug. And right here, let's stop it. So at a distance, it's amazing. Virtual characters, they are talking, they're interacting with physical props in the world. It's amazing. And then you walk up close, and you see how it looks cool to us on the screen. Anyone who's doing this in the HoloLens, cut off, right? And the way the human perceptual system works is all about edge detection. And when edges are like floating around, cut off, everything is fake, the brain doesn't buy the illusion, you might as well just throw it in the trash, right? People say, oh, come on, limited field of view is not the end of the world. And I'm like, no, it is literally the end of the world. The world ends right there, right? Yeah. So we must overcome that, or we will never have mass market adoption. No one talks about it, but this is the same reason 3D TV failed. People say 3D TV failed, because of the glasses, blah, blah, blah. No, because 3D TV creates experiences where edges are constantly being cut off, and we hate that. And that's why that doesn't work. And people say, oh, don't worry, in the next couple years, someone will invent a new lens. It'll fix the whole thing. It'll come, it's right around the corner. Let me tell you about the whole history of lenses, all right? It's not complicated, right? 700 BC, we invent the Nimrud lens. That's the one we still use today, 2,800 years later or whatever. 2 millennia later, the Fresnel lens gets invented. Great for lighthouses, not much good for much else. And then we have holograms in 1948, which are good, but geez, the chromatic aberration, and they're hard to work with, and we're still figuring those out. That's it. That's what you've got to work with. That's your entire palette. Lately, everybody's using holograms, holographic waveguides. Very exciting. Seems like the future. We should talk about them for 1 second. The way they work is you focus an image onto the in-coupling hologram, it bounces around in some magic-assed way, and then it like pops out the other side. That's magical. Pictures slide sideways down a piece of glass and just pop the heck out. It's amazing, but the problem is it's 1-to-1. That's why these things always look like this, because the image has to be exactly the same size that you projected as when it comes out. So if you want something really big, you're like stuck having to make some crazy big thing. Right? What someone needs to do is to invent the expanding holographic waveguide, where you put in a tiny image and a big one comes out the other side. But I'll be damned if anyone seems to know how to do that. If you do, you're sitting on $1 billion idea. But I don't think that's coming in the next 8 years. But I do think it's coming maybe by 2035. Okay, next obstacle, sensing technology. We talk so much about display, we often forget about sensing. Most of what makes AR cool and useful is the sensing. We need to sense real things out in the world and then augment those things. That doesn't just mean scan the polygons, it means you have to identify what all the objects are. Now, we're making some good progress with this, but damn is this hard. This is so incredibly hard. You can do it for very specific purposes, which can be great for industry, great for some specific enterprise solutions. But to do this for general purpose, for mass market, one thing I want to remind everybody, if you look at the human brain, a full 30% of the neurons in the human brain are devoted to this problem. They're devoted to the vision system of sucking things in, looking at them, figuring out what they are. That's 30% of the brain. So I don't think by 2025 we're going to have that totally nailed. Now, you can pull up the old Kurzweil graph of Moore's law here, and we can look at when are we going to be getting up near 30% of the human brain, and it's coming, right? It is coming right around 2025. 2025, we'll start to see that, but it's going to take a while for the software to be able to take advantage of the hardware. So again, I think full scanning and be able to identify every object in the room in real time at 90 hertz, I think it's farther out than 2025. So the last and most important and most terrifying obstacle for augmented reality in the mass market, there is no killer app. There's not. If there is, we don't know what it is. Maybe someone will figure it out. But so far, we sure don't know what it's for. People say, what was the killer app for the smartphone? It's easy. It was email. Bam, there's your killer app. And then there's a bunch of others that are good too. But you could probably name 3 or 4 there. With AR, it's less clear. There is some danger that mass market AR may be something like the Segway, right? The investors in the Segway predicted that Segway would earn $1 billion faster than any other company. So far, if you look at the chart, they're slated to get there around 2097 right now. So that prediction was not correct. Now, that's not to say the Segway is a bad invention. It's a great invention. And there are certain industry instances where it makes sense. If you're a mall cop, you're working in a warehouse, you're running a tourism center, these things are all great uses for the Segway. But most of us in our daily lives, it's just not practical. So a lot of people say, oh, well, what about gaming? Gaming will be that'll be the killer app for augmented reality. I don't think so, because gaming, I've been designing games a long time, and games are about escaping to another place. If I made a game and it had one scene in it, people would be like, what are the other scenes? Where are the other levels? And I'm like, no, every level is in your messy living room. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So that's a significant problem with gaming. Now, of course, you get the idea of we'll play like action table board games, and we'll have eye contact. It'll be great. It's so social. I'm like, yeah, except for that eye contact part. If we can get that, maybe. And you have the problem of network externalities, right? Having one of these is no good. Walkie-talkies are sold in pairs for a reason, right? If I only have one and you can't see what I see, that's a problem. And some people say, well, mass market will be in cars. We'll be scanning everything with some LiDAR deal, and we'll be augmenting your windshield and all that. Yeah, maybe. But like, what if there's a dog under that blue thing? That's super dangerous. This is a very dangerous thing to do. We better be super careful. And by the time we have this thing so good that we know that it's safe and we know that it's good, will we still be driving cars? Right? Because if we're scanning the world so well to give you that data, why don't we just give it the computer do the work? Now, this leads to a really weird idea. Motion sickness in autonomous cars is going to be a big problem. A lot of people get sick reading in the car. She's going to get sick. So she's going to put that down. She's going to sit and listen to our podcast and fidget and be bored. A real good use of augmented reality will be augmented reality games in the car that happen outside the car, because you'll be able to play them without getting motion sick, ironically. That's weird. Now, I'm not saying anything against industrial applications, enterprise applications. These are all super, super useful. They are kind of these niche areas where we're doing important, dangerous, valuable things. It's worth spending the money. It's worth having the high tech. Absolutely, that's true. But like mansplaining how to fix a sink trap, right? Like, she can't figure out how to turn a pipe wrench, but she somehow did the network configuration on the HoloLens? Like, I don't see that. Some people do design motorcycles for a living, and yes, if you're like an industrial designer, I totally get it. That totally makes sense. But for a lot of us who, like, a lot of our workday is social, how is this thing gonna make things better is less clear to me. And you might say, no, I work with data. Yeah, but data wants to be 2D. Go read the Tufte books. Data wants to be 2D. We've been trying to sell 3D graphics cards to businesses for years, right? I feel bad for this guy at the end trying to understand this graph, right? Like, data wants to be two-dimensional. Now, you might say, wait a minute, there's a lot of jobs that are spatial. Farmers, factory workers, construction workers, they do spatial jobs. And that's true, and some of them may benefit. But many of them do such repetitive jobs that it's not clear that you'd get a significant benefit by having the glasses on and having those be in the way. And so what I wonder is if maybe we're looking at the wrong kind of construction, right? What if activities for children are actually the killer app for augmented reality? Let me tell you a story really quick. I went to visit a friend. He had a new kitchen, and he said, check out my new kitchen. I'm like, wow, it's a really cool kitchen. And he said, check out my new stainless steel refrigerator. I'm like, wow, do you like it? He said, yeah, it's pretty good, but I can't put magnets on it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right, stainless steel is not that bothers me. Why is stainless steel not magnetic? It's all iron. Why isn't it magnetic? He said, yeah, I don't know. His 10-year-old standing right there, pulls out the phone, boop, 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 says, yeah, stainless steel has nickel infused into it, and that interrupts the crystalline structure of the iron, and therefore interrupts the magnetism. And I looked at him, I said, is it weird to you that you can do that you have all of the knowledge in the world, like right there at your fingertips, or do you think that's just totally normal? And he shakes his head, he looks at me, and says, what was it like to live in the age of ignorance? And I was mad at first, but he's right? The world has changed. We will never own the augmented reality. I will never own the internet. I didn't grow up with the internet. I grew up with video games. I own those. You only own the technologies that you grow up in. So how do kids feel about VR? Oh my God, they love it so much. VR is an augmentation on your imagination. And kids have such good imaginations, not like our adult withered dead imaginations, right? They have these really strong imaginations, and so it really multiplies things out for them. So by 2025, you're going to see a lot of toy AR applications that most people at this conference are not going to take seriously because they're going to say, oh, that's a toy thing, it's just for kids. But now I want to jump ahead to the year 2035 and just think about this for a minute, all right? A lot of the technical obstacles will be overcome by this point. And it will not be hard to imagine that kids might get a set of magic glasses that when you put them on, you get to see and play with a virtual friend. You have voice recognition, we have advanced AI by this point, we have this virtual friend that's super fun to play with. And you can play with him anywhere. He goes anywhere in your house, he goes anywhere outside your house, always with you, always there to play. Adults will not do this. They'll be embarrassed to be talking to some imaginary character that's walking with them. But children will love it, because children interact with the world spatially. It's what they do. It's why they can't sit still, because they interact spatially. So they're going to have this friend who can be with them everywhere, can play all kinds of games, is up for any kind of adventure, right? And it's very social. Anytime your friends come over, one of the first things you'll do is introduce your imaginary friends to each other, or maybe actually the imaginary friends might introduce you to each other. And this imaginary friend is not just a playmate, but the perfect teacher, always looking for just the right moment to teach you what you need to know. So this is a big responsibility for us, because I don't think parents are going to be able to resist the idea of this perfect, super intelligent mentor for their children to help them live a better life. And so what we're going to be doing as designers is we're not just designing some gadget for the next generation of techno-literati people. We are designing the eyes of the next generation. And so I urge you that we should all work together to make sure that we make the best damn eyes the world has ever known. Thank you.